Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ECISD Live. My name is Scott Muri, and I'm the superintendent of Ector County Independent School District, and it is my pleasure to welcome each of you to tonight's show. We have an incredible lineup tonight, a really talented and amazing group of individuals that are coming to share their expertise as we talk about the MAP assessment. And we'll get into that in just a few minutes, and I'll introduce our very special guest. But before we get started, we've got a few district updates that we would like to share with you. And the first one, you are probably already aware of if you've been watching the news in the last couple of days. We had an exciting announcement yesterday morning. We announced that ECISD is the first district in the United States to partner with SpaceX to bring their Starlink satellite technology, their satellite constellation, to the families of Ector County. Specifically, we are partnering with SpaceX to provide broadband internet service to a group of families that right now live in the Pleasant Farms community. We'll start with 45 families, extend that to another 90 families for a total of 135 to beta test a new technology that SpaceX has developed to bring a higher level of internet service to our families. And we're excited about this opportunity. We give significant credit to our partners in this endeavor, Chiefs for Change, which is a national philanthropic organization made up of superintendents and state chiefs from across the country, and then the Permian Strategic Partnership, our own regional organization that invests deeply in infrastructure, education, healthcare within our own community. And so we are incredibly grateful to those partners that have allowed us to work with SpaceX and to bring this exciting technology to you. In fact, just a few minutes ago, we arrived on the SpaceX website. And so I'll kind of share that with you right now. You can see this image is live from the Starlink mission control. In fact, tomorrow you can actually visit this website, and they will be launching their next set of 60 satellites. So contained within this rocket will be 60 satellites that will move into orbit and position themselves around Ector County. In the sky, you clearly will not be able to see them, but know that they're preparing to serve a group of our families, and we're really excited about that. If you scroll down on their website, you will read about their launch, which is scheduled tomorrow at 12:14 p.m., weather permitting, so we're hoping for that. And then on the right side, you'll see the Ector County ISD story. So we are honored and thrilled to invite SpaceX to the work that we're doing to support teaching and learning in Ector County. Truly a great day for our system. All right. We also had a little celebration last night at our board meeting. Our chief financial officer, Deborah Ottmers, announced to our board and to our community that ECISD has received for the first time ever a perfect score on the first report. Every year, the state of Texas looks at the audit, our financial audit specifically, and how we are managing our taxpayer dollars. And every school district in the state of Texas is given a rating every year. And for the first time ever, our rating is a perfect score of 100, and that is an A+. And so we're excited about that opportunity. Congratulations to our finance team for the work that they do to make sure that we have good financial standing. And congratulations to our board of trustees as well that advises us and makes smart decisions for our community. And we really appreciate that and congratulate the district for that opportunity. We started Monday of this week on our next level or phase of bringing our students in. We started phase 5. We brought our 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 9th graders back. Those students that were currently in a hybrid environment have now either transitioned into full-time face-to-face 5 days a week, or they transitioned into a 5-day-a-week virtual environment. Again, that started on Monday of this week in phase 5. Phase 6 is scheduled to begin in about a week and a half, and we'll bring our 7th graders and 10th graders back. Again, those kids that are in a hybrid environment. And then finally, phase 7, we will bring our 8th graders and our 11th and 12th graders back. Again, those kids that are currently in hybrid will have a chance to transition to 5-day-a-week face-to-face if that's something that they wish to do. But in order for us to continue to advance down this phasing process, we are paying attention to the health conditions, the COVID-19 conditions in our own community. And right now we're seeing some things that we don't like. The number of cases is on the rise in our community. The number of hospitalizations, while it has been hovering pretty steady, it's increasing a little bit, and that is a bit worrisome for us. And so we are monitoring our health data daily. In fact, each day at 5:30, the health department posts the latest information, so we monitor that. Each week I meet with our local health officials as well as city and county government officials, and we talk about the current health conditions in our own community. And at our most recent meeting, it was decided that we as a community need to make sure that we are reminding all residents of Ector County of the importance of continuing to maintain social distance, to maintain the wearing of masks at all times, and to make sure that we're keeping our hands clean. Those three simple acts, if each of us follow those simple acts, then our community, the numbers that are increasing today in our community will begin to decrease. But we each have to take a role in that. I know that I've been out and about recently, and just as I'm watching, I've seen a fewer people wearing masks. I've seen a few more individuals being close together, and that is worrisome, and it certainly is creating a movement in our community that is of concern. So we've got to make sure that we pay attention to that environment. And again, tonight, imploring you on behalf of our community and our school district to make sure that we're wearing masks, to make sure that we are social distancing, and to make sure that we're keeping our hands clean. And I can assure you that we, again, as a school system, are monitoring that. And if we need to make different types of decisions, then we will certainly do that as an organization. But right now, we're moving ahead and hoping for the best. In fact, the school is actually right now the safest place to be. The cases that we are reporting in our school system are occurring outside, students and teachers and others contracting the virus in the community and then bringing that to school. But because of the health measures that we've put in place, school is actually the safer place to be than many other places that we're finding ourselves in these days. So once again, I just encourage our community to continue to follow those safety protocols. All right, we're going to switch gears and now kind of jump into the topic at hand tonight. And I would like to introduce our guests. Our first guest tonight is Dr. Lilia Nunez. Lilia is the Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction in Ector County Independent School District. So welcome, Dr. Nunez. It's actually, you're making your second appearance tonight on ECISD Live. So thanks for joining us. And how is life for you right now amidst this COVID environment?
Every day is a new day. We do listen to the teachers, our principals, and we make the adjustments that we need to provide a quality learning experience for all our students. And so we appreciate teachers and principals providing us with feedback. So every day is a new adventure.
Yes, it is. I appreciate that. And you're right. Every day is definitely a new adventure in this COVID-19 world. Our second guest tonight is one of our principals. He's actually joining us for the very first time this year. It's his first opportunity to work in Ector County. He's a seasoned veteran and comes to us not from the state of Texas, at least most recently. So Paul Fultz is the principal of Bowie Middle School. And first, thank you for joining us tonight and welcome officially to ECISD. And tell us a little bit about, so you've traveled over the last several years to some different parts of our world. Tell us a little bit about that, Paul.
It's true, Dr. Muri. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be back in Texas and working with ECISD and Bowie specifically. I'm very proud to be at Bowie. You're right. I've spent the last decade or so running schools abroad. Most recently, I spent the last 2 years in Bogota, Colombia. And before that, living and running schools in Barcelona, Spain, and Bilbao, Spain as well. So I'm really excited to be back to Texas. It's different. I mean, Texas, as my father would tell you, Texas is, like a whole other country. So
we are our own country. I learned that when I moved here 5 years ago. Yes,
I'm excited. I'm excited to be back.
Yes, good. Well, we're glad to have you here, and thank you for the work that you're doing already at Bowie Middle School. And finally, tonight we're joined by one of our premieres, one of our teachers, Shanna Moore, is joining us. She is a special education teacher at Dowling Elementary School. So Shanna, it's a pleasure to have you this evening. And what is your world like? You know, our teachers, wow, in this COVID-19 world.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely different this year, but we're making the best that, out of every situation, and still seeing kids' happy faces and seeing kids continue to grow, and that's what we're there for.
Good. Well, we appreciate you being here, and thank you for the work that you and your colleagues do every single day in this really crazy time right now of supporting our kids. All right. What is the MAP assessment? This week, parents, on Monday and Tuesday, all of our schools sent home the report, a copy of your child's MAP assessment. And if you haven't seen that yet, I encourage you to dig deep in the book bag. It's there. You'll find it. Principals can also make that available to you electronically. For those of you parents that your children, which is about 35% of our families that are learning in a virtual world, the MAP assessment was given this year to kindergarten through 10th graders. And so if you're watching tonight, moms and dads, and you have a kindergartner through 10th grader, then your child took the MAP assessment. And you'll find that either buried in the backpack or you received it electronically. And maybe some of you had it or received it both ways. But tonight, we want to spend a few minutes with you and walk through this new assessment that we brought to Ector County ISD. I want to bring up a document that you've received tonight. So you have two pieces of paper, parents. The first one is it's called a family guide to map growth. And you're going to see that on the screen right now. And your document will look exactly like this. There is a Spanish version as well as an English version. But both versions relay the same information. And you'll see that the MAP assessment, the MAP test, was created by an organization called NWEA. They're a national organization, a nonprofit that created this assessment. Over 10 million students in the United States take this assessment every year. And it provides some really great data for our teachers, for our principals, for our central office, and then for our students and you as parents. And tonight we want to spend a few minutes talking with you about that data. So the first part of this is, how does this work? Well, the MAP assessment gives us two basic bits of information. First of all, it tells us how your child is performing today. The second thing that it tells us is about growth over time. So first is, how is your child performing today compared to their peers? And the second thing is growth over time. On the document that you have in front of you, parents, you're going to see today, we're going to talk about proficiency. We're going to talk about how your child is doing today. Because this is the first administration of the MAP in ECISD, your child will not have growth data on the assessment yet. And that is because they've only taken it once. They'll take it again in January and then again in April. And those three assessments together will allow you as a parent to monitor the growth of your child. So tonight, the only measure that you're going to see is the measure that talks about your child's proficiency. Where are they compared to their peers across the country? All right, Dr. Nunez, I'm going to ask you, so how does the MAP work? We're looking at this graph right now, and what does this tell us about this MAP assessment? Somebody said it's an adaptive assessment. What does that mean, Dr. Nunez?
Yes, so an adaptive assessment really adjusts to how your child responds to a question. So if you look at the graph, every time you see a green check, that means that your child responded to a question correctly, and then it moves up in rigor, in difficulty. So then you can see the second green check means that they got the second question correct. And so the third question gets even more difficult. Mm-hmm. But you'll notice that maybe that was a bit too difficult for your child. So then the system adapts to how your child responds. And so that's what it means by adaptive. So you'll notice that the next three questions, the child did not respond correctly. And then you'll see another green check. And so it just adapts based on how your children respond to each question.
And this is a powerful way to assess kids today. So this adaptive technology really learns your child based upon their responses, and then it helps us, it adjusts itself. And you can see on this, for this particular child, got the first two right, they get harder each time, but oh, we missed one, so it got a little bit easier, missed it, got a little bit easier, and we see that flow until there's a balance. And that allows us to know exactly how your child is performing. And it tells us exactly what your child knows and what they don't know. So really good information, and not only for you as a parent, but for your child as well as your child's teacher. This one is, so what does the MAP measure? We're going to talk a lot about this thing called a RIT score. It's the Rausch score. It's named after a scientist. Probably not important to know that now, but the RIT score is something that your child, excuse me, will know. They'll know their RIT score in reading, their RIT score in math, and then their RIT score in science. So all three of those areas. Lilia, excuse me, looking at this graph, what is that RIT score and what is it telling us about a student?
Well, the RIT is just basically a scale. It's how we measure what your child knows, regardless of the grade level. So you can see that the baseline RIT score that your child gets on this first administration will be the baseline. And the scale is, can start from 150 and it goes all the way up to, 220. All the way through, but it doesn't relate to grade level. It really just measures what your students, what your children know today.
Yep, and that's important. It measures what your child knows. So it's not a grade level score. It is simply, what does my child know? And for the kid, it is, what do I know? And compared to my peers, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but good information. So that's the RIT score, simply telling us what your child knows. And it's a nice score because it actually, from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, that number, that scale doesn't change. But what you can see over here in kindergarten is a RIT score of around 150 for a kindergartner. That would be a really good score. But if I was in the 9th grade and had a 150, that would not be a really good score for a 9th grader. So the older I get, as I matriculate through school, the more I learn, the higher my RIT score will be. Good. All right. I'm going to switch it now to the second document. And this is actually the document with information about your child. And it's called the sample. Tonight, it's the family report. We're looking at a sample tonight. Because we obviously don't want to show any individual student. And so we've created a student. His name is Christopher Albert. He is a 4th grader, and he goes to Smith Elementary School. And so the first thing we're going to look at, and again, parents, you have this in front of you. So all of our kids, kindergarten through 10th grade, have this document. On the left side, we're going to start with mathematics, and you're going to see the average achievement for Christopher is in the 47th percentile. Dr. Nunez, what does that mean? If Christopher is in the 47th percentile, what is that saying about Christopher in the area of mathematics?
Well, typically when you're looking at percentiles, we look to see if a child is close to the 50th percentile. When your child is close to the 50th percentile, that means that they are average. And so that's what that means.
Yep, that's exactly right. So Christopher is in the 47th percentile, and that means the 50th percentile would be where the average, when we look at the 10 million children around the United States that have taken that assessment, Christopher is a little bit below average when compared to his peers across the United States.
Right.
On the graph itself, you can see that actually it's looking at his most recent score, so it was a 201. So the dotted line is the national average. Christopher's a little bit below where the average student in 4th grade would be performing. You can also see Christopher's history. Your child does not have a history with this assessment. So tonight, parents, you're really looking at a dot that's on the far left side, and it will say fall of 20. That is because it's the first time we've given this assessment in ECISD. So the average achievement of your child would be here, exactly where Christopher's is. But on the graph, you're only seeing one dot. And that is because, again, this is the first administration ever. On the right side, and this is the piece that we're all missing tonight, we're missing this because we've only administered this assessment one time in ECISD. But the next time you receive this, parents, which will be in January, on the right side, you're actually going to see a growth score. Dr. Nunez, why is growth so important for our students in ECISD?
Well, when you send your children to school, you expect them to make academic gains. And so it is very important for us to be able to document and show evidence that your children are growing academically. What is wonderful about the MAP test is you will be able to see the growth that happens between each testing event. So when you get your results, your family report in January, you will have an additional RIT score, and hopefully you will see that trajectory moving up. Because again, our goal is to have every child grow at least 1 year. With COVID, we need to grow them more than 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Christopher, so over time, so Christopher started with a RIT score of 178 in math. And then the second time he took it in the winter, 186, and then he was at 203. So Christopher had a lot of growth that particular year. And you can see Christopher's growth measure was in the 96th percentile, which means he grew a lot faster than every other fourth grader in the country. So kudos to Christopher and his teachers for working so hard with him.
Yes.
Moving on down, we see reading, and it's exactly the same thing. So on the left side, parents, you're going to see the fall of 20, which is right now, and you're going to see a dot. If the dot is below the dotted line, then your child right now is performing below his or her peer group across the United States. So you want your child to be at least the 50th percentile or higher, which would mean the 50th percentile is your child is right in alignment with other fourth graders or sixth graders across the country. If your child is below that, then your child is not performing at the level that would be expected of a student that is in the fourth grade, if you will, across the country. And so that would be critical. You can see that Christopher, over time, he had a little bit of a decline from fall to winter, but then had a huge success in the spring, and then a little bit of a decline from spring to fall. And you can see that Christopher right now, from a growth perspective, he's growing a little bit better than the national average. So tonight, parents, again, you're going to see just where they are from a proficiency level in math and reading. And then finally, science, the same scenarios. You can see in this case, Christopher has performed above the national average in each of the 4 times that he took the test. And his growth is slightly above average. So while he's performing above, he's not growing as much as he is in the area of math. And mathematics, he really grew during the year last year, but again, not as much growth in the area of science. All right. So
Dr. Muri, I would also like to point out that we actually don't, we start our science test at grade 3. So grade 3 through 8th grade is where we assess science.
So science scores would only be seen by children and from 3rd grade through 8th grade.
Yes, sir.
On our high school kids, English 1, Algebra 2, those were the content areas that our high school kids took this assessment. Good. And then all of our pre-Kers through 2nd grade would have both math and reading. All right. Good clarification. All right. A question already came in. Somebody asked about how did the district do? So we actually do have district results. We'll put in the chat area, we shared our district data with our board of trustees just last week. And so our board and our community had a chance to see how our district is doing. And our district, it was very evident that the COVID slide has occurred. In fact, if you looked in the area of mathematics, our students are scoring well below their peers across the country. So we slid in mathematics. In reading, our students are scoring well below their peers across the country. So we slid in reading. And in science, our students are scoring below their peers in science. There was a slide in science as well. And so in all three areas, the COVID slide is very evident. And that is why, and Dr. Nunez, you can respond to this, I would call it, we have an academic crisis as a community that we must address. And that's why we are having this show tonight, to make sure that moms and dads can be a part of this work with us. Our students really suffered during this COVID pandemic. Stress has created this suffering. In the fall, or excuse me, in the spring, the simple fact that our kids didn't have school, we didn't have face-to-face learning. Many of our kids do not have internet access in their homes, and our kids struggled mightily, and then that struggle continued throughout the summer. And we're seeing the evidence of that in mathematics, in reading, and in science. Mr. Fultz, as a principal of a middle school, you serve sixth graders, seventh graders, and eighth graders, and you've seen your school data, and you've seen the data for individual students. And one of the things that parents want to know is, what can I do as a parent? How can I help my child at home if I see on this document that they're performing below their peers? What can I do?
It's a great question. There's actually a lot of support that parents can provide, and parents are oftentimes afraid of looking for specific supports because maybe they feel like they won't know how to do it or how to support them. But one of the silver linings of all of the technology that we have brought in due to COVID is that there is a lot of support out there. So I'm going to give three suggestions. The first suggestion is look at the data. And if you don't understand the data, and that's entirely possible. I mean, let's be honest. I have been fortunate to be using map data to drive student achievement for the last 15 years or so. And there are times when I look at some of these reports and I still think, okay, what does that mean? I need to figure that out. Fortunately, MAP has organized the information for the individual families and students in a very user-friendly way. And we at the district, in the classroom and at the school, have an even more user-friendly, a graphical version. So the first thing I would do is look at the data, try to understand the data, and reach out to your teachers, your counselors, and us at the school level with specific questions that come up. The second thing I would recommend families do is read. Anything and everything that is possible. And I'm going to go a little bit old school here. Magazines, newspapers, comic books, physical books. Kids are spending a lot of time in front of computer screens now because of obvious, the situation that we're in, as well as it's what they're comfortable with. But reading anything and everything that you can get your hands on is going to help. And specifically, this is where our librarians can really help out. The report that you have specific to reading not only gives a RIT score, but it also gives a Lexile score. And that Lexile score is another scale that is used all around the world, and it measures the difficulty of books or newspaper articles or websites. And you can literally go to Lexile.com, or you can go to our website, our library website, and you can find books that are within your child's Lexile level that are going to both challenge them and keep them interested, but also not be too difficult, right? You don't want their reading material to be too complicated or too easy, because then they don't grow. So the Lexile, using that number is really important. And I think the third thing that parents can do is really show interest and ask their kids questions. Even if you don't know the answer, just the fact that you're engaged with your student and what they're learning, and what they're being successful in or what they feel like they're struggling with is really going to get your kids more involved, more engaged, and more animated.
Great. No, that's great questions. In fact, on the document, if we can pull that back up, this is the parent piece that parents you have tonight. How can I use this information to help my child? So specifically, questions that you can ask, and Mr. Fultz, you refer to some of these questions already. Clearly it's the relationship between the parents and the teachers in the school that make a powerful difference. And so some good questions for parents to ask. Your point about reading, absolutely. Reading materials are found in every home. It doesn't have to be a book, a magazine, a newspaper. There are things that our kids can read, and moms and dads can read with their kids. So great advice.
And we're at the school level also bringing in more of those resources, physical resources and digital resources as well. So I would encourage parents to reach out to the library and try to get some of those resources as well.
Great. No, that's a great point. We're a provider, the public library as well as the school library, both great places to get these materials for your kids. Good advice. Ms. Moore, I'd ask you, you are a special education teacher, and what we know based upon our MAP data is one group of students that have struggled the most during this pandemic are special education teachers. And so what would you say to a parent tonight? I'm looking at these data and I see that my child is really struggling. Help me. How would you advise our parents tonight?
I have to kind of piggyback off of what Paul said in that aspect. Reach out to those teachers. They want to help you help your students. We do any and everything that we can to challenge and push our kiddos to go ahead and make that progress. And we really, really want parents to reach out and show the interest or ask questions, because we can better know how to support you in that aspect. The reading 100% is one of the most critical things that we see with our kids that we can do at home with our kids. Just encouraging them, having those conversations, getting them to relate things that they've done in school that they've learned, being able to tell you about those things. Those things are so important. Overall, I think really reaching out to those teachers and asking questions where the kids are struggling, what you can do to help them, build those relationships with your teacher, because it takes all of us together. We can do anything. And teachers want that. They want your kid to be successful. So definitely reaching out to them and continuing all the reading, the conversations, I think is very important. Good.
So one question sometimes I'm asked, Shanna, and that is, what is the best way to contact a teacher? And so in your opinion, how does a parent go about doing that? What's the most effective way?
To me, I think it depends on teachers. I know for me, I use Class Dojo with all of my kids, and I'm very open to parents and tell them anytime you have questions, you shoot me a message, I'll respond. Leave me a voicemail, I'm going to return your call. So I think both of those ways are very good ways to get a hold of teachers. Overall, definitely the Class Dojo is pretty fast. A lot of us are using that now, and those messages are coming in directly. So those are almost instant that you can take a second and respond, or, things like that.
No, good guidance. Thank you. Dr. Nunez, I'm going to ask you about the district and what the district is doing to support these kids as we close this COVID gap. But I'm going to give you a chance to jump in from a parent perspective. Any guidance that you would give to parents on how they can support their kids?
Yes. So I highly encourage you all to have lots of conversations with your children. From a parent perspective, if I had a child doing remote learning, because we still have approximately 35% of our students that are going to be doing remote learning, I would really have conversations with the students. Because, what we're seeing across the board for our remote learners is engagement. We see students that are logging in to a Google Meets and maybe logging into, a platform such as Imagine Math or Teach to One. And just because they log in doesn't mean that they're engaged. So what we're seeing is that kids log in, but they're not completing their assignment. So as a parent, talk to your kids and ask them, did you finish your lesson on Teach to One? If so, show me your evaluation or your daily check, your formative check. And kids should be able to pull that up and show parents. I think just talking and engaging with the students to just verify that just logging into a Google Meets does not mean that they're engaged. So we encourage you to really communicate, have that open communication with your children.
Yeah, great advice. Those nothing beats a healthy conversation with a child, specifically, about what they're learning that day. Don't accept that answer, parents. What did you do at school today? Nothing. Your kids are active every day, and probably now more than ever, especially our virtual kids, diving into their learning. And as Dr. Nunez said, simply logging in does not mean that your child is learning or that they are engaged. Engagement in virtual learning is much more involved than simply logging in and listening. There is a lot of action that our teachers are requiring. So good guidance, Dr. Nunez. Switch gears for a minute, Dr. Nunez. So we've talked about what a parent can do. Well, what are we doing as a school district? What is ECISD doing right now as we recognize we have the COVID slide? What would you share with our parents tonight?
So as a district, we're really implementing interventions and acceleration for students that fall below the 50th percentile in performance. So for example, in kindergarten through 5th grade, the instructional specialists are working with teachers to carve out what we call the second dose of reading instruction for students that fall way below that 50th percentile on MAP. So that second dose of reading instruction will come in the form of the leveled literacy library. It's a system that is designed to accelerate students, and it's a more personal experience for students. So a teacher can see what the RIT scores or the Lexile scores are for the children. They will group them in small groups. Right now with COVID, we're encouraging teachers to work with 3 to 4 kids spaced out safely, and to provide them a more personalized experience with their second dose of guided reading per se. That's one example. In mathematics, we're doing a variety of things. We do have the Imagine platform. We have it for literacy, language, reading, and of course for math. Again, encouraging your students to complete the minimum minutes, 100 minutes on Imagine Math every week. That's a goal that we've set. 3 of our middle schools have Teach to 1. And like I said, that is encouraging your students to go through the entire lesson till they reach that exit ticket at the end of their daily lesson. That really does inform us to see how kids are learning and mastering the lessons of the day. So there's just a variety of things that we're doing as a district to ensure that we are providing that intervention and acceleration for our students.
I want to bring the document back up for just a minute. And to your point, Dr. Nunez, if we look at Christopher specifically in the area of reading, look what happened to him. So he started at a 185, and then he went to 184, but look what happened from the winter to the spring. Remember the dotted line is the national average. So Christopher was well below in the winter, but man, in the spring, he is now above. Dr. Nunez, I know this is speculation, but what do you think happened right there? Did that magically occur? What went on during that time?
No. Actually, that's what data is for. Data informs what we need to do with our students. And so in this particular case, I would say, if I were the teacher or the principal of that child, immediately we would know, okay, this child needs intervention. And so that child would have been pulled into the intervention group, and we would have been providing that child, Christopher, with the instructionally appropriate level books to accelerate him to get to grade level. And I've seen this happen many, many times over the course of my career. That intervention, that acceleration can do this for our students and will.
And I think that is what all of our families need to know and understand tonight. This movement on the part of Christopher from the winter to the spring is significant growth, but that can happen. Your child deserves a great academic experience. And when your child has a great teacher and a great learning experience, that's the kind of progress that a child can make. And to Dr. Nunez's point, that's all about intervention. Our teachers right now are equipped with exactly where your child is. So they know exactly what your child knows, and they know what your child doesn't know. And so this teacher or these teachers, specifically for Christopher, they knew exactly what he didn't know, and they took him on a journey that by the spring, he knew a lot more than he clearly knew in the winter. And it made a difference with his performance. You'll see the same thing in math. Look at Christopher's growth in mathematics. Those teachers took him on a significant journey during his fourth grade year and took him from well below his peers to now on par with his peers across the country. Mr. Fulci, you serve a middle school, and the challenge that you have right now is to take your students on this journey. Those students that have suffered because of the COVID slide have got to have this opportunity. So what's happening at Bowie Middle School and at middle schools and high schools across ECISD that will create that kind of growth for our kids?
Absolutely. So, we're at this point, we're leveraging the training that the teachers have had and we as administrators have had on how to understand, learn, and leverage the map data. And we're using our PLC time and really targeting a number of those discussions, in science, in math, in ELAR.
What's a PLC?
Oh, sorry, our professional learning community.
There you go.
So it's standard. Yes, I forgot. It's standard time that all of the teachers in one subject area at a grade level have together to work together to plan. So it's not just planning the lessons that are gonna target individual and small groups, but it's also really digging into the data. The data that parents see and are really concerned about is high level. But the beauty of the map is that those of us that work with students on a day-to-day basis can get all the way down to the specific strand, the specific TEK or Common Core standard that students need to work on. And then we can unpack that information and really work on individuals and small groups to say, okay, so this is the area specific that we need to focus on you, and we can give them practice, or we can give them additional exercises, or we can give them additional opportunities to grow with those specific areas. And with that surgical precision that our PLCs are working from, that's where that growth really comes from. Because it's really specific things, it's themes and it's TEKs that kids need to know.
So really the map for us as educators has helped us to diagnose of our students. And now, just like a master surgeon, you diagnose the condition and then you treat. And so now our opportunity as educators is to treat what we see. And in the case of Christopher, we've seen in mathematics that you can see he's well below his peers. And so the math teachers would clearly develop a treatment plan for Christopher that takes him on a pretty significant journey. And based upon his data, he really grew a lot during his fourth grade year. Good stuff. Shanna, let's come to you and let's talk about, from a teacher perspective, teachers have these data about their students. What does it look like? How do and as a special ed teacher, you have a lot of data about kids, probably even more than a general education teacher. And so what specifically do you do with these data? And then how does it inform the instructional processes that you incorporate as a teacher?
So the data gives us a way to look at where the students are achieving well, and then also where some of those weaker areas or those gaps may appear. So for me, and I think a lot of teachers, we can look at that data and we can go through and we can target specific areas where kids need the most help or growth. So it gives us a way to differentiate our instruction for all kids.
Let me use that word for me. So differentiate, what does that mean?
that means that we're going to target skills for kids on their level where they're needing the most help. And we can also do that with our kids that are learning above grade level.
Sure.
So we give them specific instruction to go ahead and push them to grow as well. So it definitely gives us a way to kind of just take all of the data together. We can make a plan for each kid. We can target those kids who are on grade level, who are above grade level, and those who are also below grade level. That way we keep all kids making growth and moving toward where we want them to be.
So that's interesting. You kind of commented on all kids. So not every child is performing below their peer groups. We have lots of kids in ECISD that are performing well above their peer groups across the country. And from what I heard you say is your job as a teacher is to, no matter where the child may end up on this scale, your job is to differentiate. It is to kind of tailor the instruction for the individual.
Yes, sir.
Is that easy to do?
No, it takes some time and it does take a lot of planning, but we do it because we want to see all kids be successful. So
yeah, that's the hard part. I think that's the art of teaching, at least in my opinion. The artist that comes out in a teacher is when you can tailor instruction to the individual child. That's the really hard work of teaching, but it is the right work to do. And I really, to a special ed teacher, you spend a lot of your time because many of the students you serve are so uniquely different that there's a lot of differentiation that happens in your world. So good stuff. Mr. Fulsey, coming back to you. So we've talked about what parents can do. We've talked about what we're doing, but what about this? None of this can be solved by ourselves. ECISD cannot grow every child by ourselves. Our parents cannot grow their children by themselves. What does this look like?
Yeah, oftentimes you hear it referred to as a triangle or, a triad. I mean, really the three key people in this process are the student, the parents, and the school or the school district. And honestly, what we can do is, we've mentioned before, maintain open lines of communication, ask questions, ask for clarification, ask for resources. If I'm a parent or if I'm a teacher, again, right? We spend an awful lot of time with your kids, but they're your kids. You know them in ways that we don't know them. You see them in context that we don't often see them. So that flow of information, has to be two ways, right? We encourage you to ask us questions and for resources, but we also encourage you to engage with us when we have that. And oftentimes we skip the student part, not because we're they're left out of the process, but I think especially now it's really important for us to engage the students, both as parents and as administrators and teachers and the school district, and ask them what they need and ask them what support they would like to see, and really praise them when things are going well, because we're all in different places. Just by the examples we've given, there are students that are well above, students well below, and just like Shanna said, we try to differentiate for all of those kids, and having parents and students advocating for what they need is one way that we can really all meet together, as you say, and have this happen in the middle.
Yeah, good. It is a collaborative opportunity for sure. Shanna, what about you from a teacher's perspective? What is the we thing? It's not just about the teacher, and the family. It's not just the teacher or the family. It is both together. What does that look like for you?
To me, it's lots of collaboration. Like it takes both the parent and the teacher to help us make kids successful. So just keeping those open lines of communication, helping. Our ultimate goal is to help you at home, help your child, as well as for you to help us with your child when you send them to school. And that it just takes us working together, having the open lines of communication, and I think just continuing to push forward.
Good. The communication word, I would absolutely agree. It is working together. Our SpaceX announcement the other day happened because of of communication, but working together, partnering with Chiefs for Change, partnering with the Permian Strategic Partnership, partnering with SpaceX. Now that opportunity is happening in our community because of those words you just said, communication and collaboration. And because of that, good things are happening. And that is the same thing for our kids. Mr. Folsey, you mentioned the three-legged stool. It is the teacher, the school, if you will, it is the parent, and it is the child. All three of those entities have to work together to make good things happen for kids. Dr. Nunez, what about you? As you think about this relationship between school system and parents and our kids, what does this look like, Dr. Nunez?
Well, it does take a village. We work and strive very hard to serve every student the best we can, and it has been a different experience for our teachers and for students. Remote learning has been new for many of us. Hybrid has been new, and then mixing. Some of our teachers do face-to-face and remote learning at the same time. And so it has been a journey to prepare everyone and to provide all the tools, the digital tools, all our content, and it's just been a learning process. So we work together. We want to hear from you, the parents, to tell us what is working and what is not working. I'm very excited about the data that we received from MAP because I feel like we are more informed about each child more so than we ever have been in the past. And so the data that we have, the reports that a teacher gets, literally, I call it a groupinator, because a teacher can look at a certain document and know how to group kids based on skill, based on strategies that they need. So, using the tools that we have now and knowing more about your children is definitely going to help us serve your children better.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. In fact, one of the questions that was asked was, how do I know how much learning loss my child may have experienced? And we'll pull up this slide once again that shows you the document. And this is what I would pay attention to, parents. In the area of mathematics, on this chart, you're going to see a score for your child, and you're going to see the national average. You want your child to be performing at or above the national average. That's where you want your child. And on this graph, it's represented with a dotted line because it's over time. But you're going to see that mark in mathematics. You're going to see it in reading. And for 3rd through 8th graders, you're going to see it in science. Clearly, you can see Christopher is performing above the national average, and that's where you want your child to be, at or above that average. If your child is performing below, then there has been learning loss, and your child, and that's where intervention comes in. That's when we, as a school district, intervene to help your child move to where they need to be. That's where you, as a parent, deeply engage in the learning process to provide the supports at home that your child needs, to work with your child's teacher, as we discussed tonight. And that's when your child also is made aware of where they are. One of the most powerful aspects of this entire MAP assessment is the fact that your child is empowered with their own knowledge. They know where they are, and they know what they have to do to improve. And if anyone needs to be empowered, it is our children with their own data. And I really appreciate this assessment because it tells our kids exactly where they are. And then we as parents and we as educators can challenge them to be the very best them that they can be. Our commitment is to be a part of that journey. And I hope you as parents will be a part of that journey as well. I want to go back to our panel. If we all four could come up, I just want to say a couple of words. First, thank you for joining us tonight. And I want to ask each of you, as we talk to our parents one last time, any words of wisdom as parents mull over these data tonight and mull over how they can more effectively support their kids. Any final words of wisdom? Dr. Nunez, we'll start with you.
So, this is a different kind of report, one that you really have not seen in the past. So please reach out to your classroom teacher. They will be able to provide you with some additional guidance on these reports. But I really ask you to look forward to the January reports, because then we will see the results of the work that your child and the teachers are doing from the first administration to the January administration of this map. So I really ask you to be excited when you get your reports in the middle of the year, because that really will gauge and tell you how much growth between testing events. So
Absolutely. All about the growth. Great point, Dr. Nunez. It's all about the growth, and we'll see that in January. So parents definitely look forward to that opportunity. Shanna, what about you from a teacher's perspective? Any final words of wisdom for our parents tonight?
I really just think just asking questions when there's something that you might not understand or any concerns that you have with your kid. As a parent, we all worry about our kids. And so teachers expect and welcome you asking those questions about your child. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Definitely.
Great answer. I like what you said. Teachers are not afraid to be asked a question. We're ready for the questions from you moms and dads. So feel free to reach out. Good advice. And Mr. Fulse, I'm sorry, your final words of wisdom from you as one of our principals.
So I would piggyback on something that you said, Dr. Muri. One of the key leverage points for the MAP test is it does empower our students as individuals, as learners. They have the data, and the data is presented to them in a way that shows what they're good at, what they need to focus on and improve. And I would encourage parents to run with that, to encourage their students to really take ownership of their own learning and really sort of be the driver in that process, because students from elementary to high school are all capable of that, and this is a tool that will allow them to really ask for what they need and really track themselves, because that's what the map is, right? I mean, we've talked about how they compare to their peers, or how they compare to the national or international average, but really the map growth is the growth that they've made themselves from one test administration to another, and that's a hugely powerful feeling when you get that success. So I would encourage parents to really push their kids to drive that themselves.
Excellent point. So between now and January, when we take it again, that child really ultimately is the owner of their own growth. And so encouraging that daily growth and engagement. And kids, again, you're competing against yourself. Great, and owner of your data. Thank you for joining us tonight. You're three very talented educators in ECISD, so we appreciate your words of wisdom. A couple of questions that were asked, and that is really about what if I can't find my child's MAP assessment? Dig deep in the backpack. It's probably there somewhere. If not, reach out to your child's school. You can do that tomorrow, either telephone or email, and your child's school can help you access that. If your child has lost that document, we have electronic copies, and we're happy to send another one your way. So please reach out to your school. Thank you for joining us tonight, moms and dads. We appreciate your time and attention. And again, this is a relationship, a partnership between us as a school system, between you as parents, and between your child. The three parts of that stool stand strong when we work together. So thank you for being a part of the learning process. We have a lot of work to do as a community to overcome the COVID slide that has occurred with our students, but we have the ability to do that by working together. Our kids will be successful and will attain whatever success they wish in life. So thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening and good night.